What's going on, everyone? True Techno Gamer, and this is the one. This is it. So it's been over 2 years, and I'm about to finally give you guys an updated home theater tour for 2025. Now, since the last time I did this, there has been quite a bit of changes, and I'm really excited about this one, and apparently you guys are too. My home theater tours have been, like, I think the most popular videos on the channel, so I appreciate that. Got a lot to get into, guys, so let's get into it. All right, guys, so before I take you guys around the room and through all of my components, old and the new updates that I've done since the last 2 years, I want to set the stage for a little bit, okay? So I'm going to break this tour up into 3 categories. So the first I'm going to call the core components. That's going to be walking through the core pieces to the audio system and the video system. So things like the amplifier, speakers, TV, whatever, we'll get into that. All the core stuff. The second thing is what I'm going to call filling in the gaps, right? The links to everything. That was where I spent most of the time in the past 2 years kind of doing things, right? So that's going to be things like the power, right? And the cabling, right? And those kind of details, okay? And then the third thing will be the room, right? The room itself. There is no right or wrong way. I'm not showing you guys this to say, hey, here is the ultimate home theater. You know, this is what you guys need to get. No, that's never been the point. That's never been what I'm about. But hopefully, if someone watches my channel and someone watches this video and says, I didn't know about that component, or I didn't think about, you know, that particular thought process in terms of making that decision, you know, that's useful for me. That's insightful for me to make my decision. Mission accomplished, guys, okay? I'm going to present this and show this to you guys as what this is all about. My room and my system is unique in that it is a multi-purpose system. I cannot stress this enough. This is the underlying piece for all of the decisions I've made, aesthetics and performance. Multi-purpose system, meaning it's a hybrid. My goal was to achieve a world-class 2-channel music listening experience, a world-class Dolby Atmos home theater listening experience, and also have a rec room here where I can entertain guests, bring in friends, bring in families, even my kids and play dates and whatever. People can be down here, and I can, if I wanted to, turn up, rock this room, rock the house, give it a lounge vibe, give it a club vibe. It can fill up the space effortlessly. With that said, I'm going to do this the way I've done it before, right? I start at the top of the stairs, and then I usually show a flashback so you guys can really see the evolution. It's super cool to see that. It's crazy for me and my wife to see that, because it's like, can't even remember what this room looked like 5 years ago, right? So I'll show the flashback along the way, all the other tours I've done, and then we'll get into this one. Are you ready? Let's do it. Let's do it, guys. Home theater tour 2025. And this same view from the top of the stairs already looks a bit different, right? You guys can see some stuff on the walls that were not there before, okay? So we'll get to that. This is the Dolby Atmos Theater, Christmas time as usual, right before the end of the year. And voila. There it is, guys. There it is. Okay. So again, off a glance, if you've seen the last video 2 years ago, like I said, on a macro level, this room doesn't look dramatically different, right? All right. And the reason why I waited so long to do a home theater tour is because I wanted to wait till I had made some updates to make it meaningful, which I have, and we'll go into that, right? There's still some things that I may do with the room itself. That's, again, more just aesthetic and function stuff. But like I said, I think in terms of the core components and everything, we are in good shape. So I'm going to try to focus on the newer things. But it's been a few years. I've gotten a lot more subscribers, a lot more people on the channel. So I'm going to assume that a lot of you guys have not seen a lot of the stuff in my previous tours, right? So I'm going to try to go over everything as best I can and, not, making this video too crazy. But let's do it. Now, I said I'm going to divide it in 3 parts. Let's get into the nitty gritty. I'm going to start with what I call the core components, and I'm going to start with visually what stands out most in this room. So let's look here. And of course, my favorite pieces when you first really look here are the things you notice. And I'm going to start with this baby. This is one of the key upgrades from the last home theater tour, guys. This is the LG G4 97-inch OLED. This is one of my favorite things in this system, of course. This is a nearly 100-inch flagship OLED. Guys, this is one of a kind. I've said this before. I've done the review on this TV, highlighted it on my channel. There are very few videos, very few pieces of content whatsoever on the 97-inch class of OLEDs, and there's a reason for that. They are super niche. They are super exclusive. They only really make and sell maybe just a few a year, like a few hundred maybe a year. And they're super expensive. Of course, I was able to get a pretty good deal on it, but no question, this is a luxury purchase. This is a YOLO purchase, as I've said. But there is nothing like a OLED of this size out there on the market. This is literally the largest commercially available OLED in the world. And I am super proud to own it. The next things, of course, are obvious. These are my babies. 2 years in, I love these speakers. These are the Paradigm Persona speaker line. The 2 towers here of the Paradigm Persona 7F, which is their flagship. This is a beryllium tweeter, true extent beryllium tweeter, true extent beryllium mid-range, which is still, to this day, very unique. These speakers are technically about 8 years old now. I've had them for 2 years, but I mean, the line is about 8 years old. There still is no other speaker that really offers the combination of things it offers at its price point. All right, I've done extensive videos and coverage on this speaker line, my decision making to get them, et cetera, et cetera. So check that out if you haven't already. It's a great watch. I've gotten a lot of good feedback on it, but I covered it really well, waiting for my check from Paradigm. No, I'm just joking. But no, I think I did a really good job just explaining my thought process and why I love these things. Just look at them. They just look amazing. The color scheme fits in so well with my room and my overall color scheme. The sound is just amazing, and they've gotten only better, so much better in the past 2 years. For a lot of reasons that I'm going to go over in this video as well, right? So Paradigm Persona, these are the speakers that I have been lusting over since they came out 8+ years ago. I finally got them, and I am super happy. These are my Endgame, guys. Endgame speakers right here. Really can't do much more. And to the left is one of the most recent additions to the home theater. This beast, beautiful beast, is the Pearlisten D215S subwoofer. Oh my gosh. And I have two of these. One is there, one is here. So you might remember I had SVS subs, SB16, which I was pretty comfortable with and thought they performed pretty well. They weren't in game. These subs are in game, right? What I mean by that, again, there is nothing that I am lacking or wanting with these things. Power, accuracy, tightness, performance, right? I have room to grow and scale, plenty of power, but it's not about that. It's the accuracy, it's the tightness of the bass. It is just unbelievable. The way that they disappear and blend in with the fronts and just how accurate and tight the bass is, those are the things that stand out. But point is, these are in-game. These are in-game subs. So shout out to Pearl Listen. All right, so those are the obvious things. And of course, this is the Persona Center channel, center speaker. Again, looks great, blends in and matches everything so well. Cannot say enough about that. All right, so in terms of other speakers, we got the surrounds. My surround LR and rear surrounds are all the same. They're still Paradigm, but they're the older Prestige line. And the reason for that is that the older Prestige line is the only line that actually has a true bipole surround speaker. I've said this before, I'm a fan of bipole dipole, particularly for a big kind of open rec room like this, because I think that it fills the space a bit more when it comes to that third use case I was talking about of kind of just lounge, rec room, just kind of chilling in the space. And also for home theater too, I think it gives a wider sense of surround and stuff like that. So I got the bipole, so they're sending signals reflecting off the wall on the side here. There's the woofer in the middle. And again, all four of those are the same. And then finally, last but not least, this was another recent upgrade. I pointed this out about a year ago. I upgraded my Atmos speakers. So what we have now are SVS elevation speakers, right? The new ultra elevation speakers, okay? So these are bigger. They have bigger cabinets so they can push more air. They have upgraded tweeters and upgraded mid-range. The tweeter is actually diamond coated now, which is pretty awesome. And then it has a bigger mid woofer driver. So previously, I think they were like 4 inches or so for the mid woofer. Now they're 5¼ inches. So again, they can push more air. They can play louder and give a more full sound. They have a wider frequency range as well than the previous ones. They're still very economical, man. Like a pair of these are still about $1,000. Actually a little bit less, I think, now on sale. So 4 of these were, cost me about $2,000 or so. That's not bad, right? Considering the, the quality. Again, that's typical SVS fashion. But so these are still, like, again, most people wouldn't even notice them, especially now with the cloud brackets up here for those on the side. But they definitely make their presence known. The Atmos between, again, the acoustic panels made a difference to enhancing the Atmos as well, because there's less sound reflecting off the ceiling, right, and off the floor now. So it's more focused. You can hear what the Atmos speakers are contributing better. So between that, the improvements I made to like using ARC on the processor, and then the speakers themselves, the Atmos effects come across a lot better now. All right, now let's look in the cabinet here. Before we look in the cabinet, what is this cabinet? So this cabinet, okay, is an Oslo, right? It's an Oslo 3x3 AV cabinet. Okay, it's awesome. It's one of the first things I actually got in this room when I moved into this house. But it's a 3x3. I got 9 shelves in there, a nice high quality glass, tempered glass everywhere. It's 7 years old now, still holds up really, really well. So let's open up the cabinet and let's go through everything in here. Some of the stuff is new, some of the stuff is old. On the left here, these are mostly older things that I'm going to touch on real quick. On the top, we have the Oppo UDP 205 4K Blu-ray player. Shout out to Oppo. Most of you guys know Oppo has been discontinued. This was their flagship. Again, this is the 205. It's a universal player, can play every disc, and I still have a lot of discs. I have a lot of Blu-rays. I have a lot of 4K Blu-rays. I have a lot of music discs, CDs, DVD audio, dual discs, SACDs, right? This thing can play them all. So this is my dedicated disc player, of course, and of course my movie player for 4K Blu-rays, right? I still use this thing regularly. It still holds up, still doesn't have any issues. It's built like a tank. Can't say enough about it. In the middle here, this is the Outlaw 5000X. This is the amplifier. It's the 5-channel amplifier that is used to power my Atmos speakers, the 4 Atmos speakers I have. So I have one spare channel still left here. This is a solid amp. It's under $1,000. So bang for the buck, it to me is among the best. I think it's even better than stuff like Emotiva, for example, out there. Again, awesome amp, solid, cool, no issues with it. Atmos speakers are getting plenty of power. On the bottom here, this is the Parasound Halo A52 Plus. This is the 5-channel amp that is used to power my center and my 4 bed surrounds. So my left, right, and then rear, left, right surrounds, and then my center channel. So, you know, I really like Parasound. Clearly, I have a lot of Parasound. And, you know, again, plenty of power, about, 180 watts times 5. That's all channels driven, by the way. If there's only 2 channels driven, the power goes up to about 225 watts per channel into 2 channels. So depending on what's going on in the theater, it could be at least 180. It is in many cases over 200 watts per channel. So again, served me really well. Not too crazy in terms of price. It was a couple thousand at the time, but Parasound makes some great stuff. All right, new piece. All right, on the top here, this beauty, again, one of my favorite things in my system is the Hi-Fi Rose RS130 flagship transport streamer. It's a hi-fi audio streamer, right? It's only the streamer. It's only the transport, meaning it doesn't have a built-in DAC. Okay, this is the flagship. Hi-Fi Rose makes some amazing products, man. The look, the feel, the construction, the build quality. Then they've also kind of been one of the first to really pioneer the UI and the UX. The user experience with these things is awesome. You see this nice, big, wide, vibrant LED screen on the front here. It has an HDMI output, which allows me to be able to stream to my TV. It has a built-in, what they call Rose tube. It's like a YouTube thing that kind of filters or caters to music and various music and with a really high quality too, by the way. All right, so I can watch YouTube videos through here and have it played out in the highest quality possible. Really nice device, man. Can't say enough about it. Sitting down listening to music here, hi-fi, high res, from Tidal, from Cobos, from Spotify, from Apple Music, whatever it is, I can do it all through there, and it just comes out sublimely. Previously, I had a Blue Sound Node, if you saw the last tour. So this was quite an upgrade from this. This thing is definitely not cheap. It's again, luxury item, but it is really good performance and just it feels luxury. It looks luxury. It's just a joy to have. In the middle here, we have the power conditioner. Okay, I'll talk more about this, but real quick while I'm showing it, this is the Audio Quest Niagara 5000. Okay, this is where all of these components are powered through here. This is connected to the wall, and then everything else connected into here. This filters out the power, cleans up the power, and just makes sure that everything has the purest, cleanest power possible. Okay, I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then down here, the Anthem AVM90. This is the brain of it all. This is it, man. I've had this now for about 3 years, and I'm loving it, right? I mean, it still serves up super well. Keep in mind that for me, this is really everything, okay? This is my processor for Dolby Atmos and DTSX and all the home theater stuff. This is also my preamp. So it's the preamp for movies, but also the preamp for my 2-channel listening. And it also is my DAC. Right now, when I listen to music, usually, whether it's through my disc player or through my digital streamer here, I don't use the DACs in there. This one does have a DAC. It actually has the same DAC right? Which at the time was considered to be, one of the, well, not one of the top of the line best DAC on the market. This baby has the same DAC in there. This doesn't have a DAC. So I still use this as a DAC because I've thought about it, I've contemplated it, and I'm just like, everyone I've talked to has kind of said, the difference you might get with a dedicated DAC, a dedicated standalone DAC, is probably going to be pretty small in the grand scheme of things. I just haven't justified it for myself yet, but this thing does an amazing job. As much as I love listening to music on this system, this is what the AVM 90 is about. The AVM 70 is an awesome, awesome processor as well from Anthem. Great for home theater, pretty close to the same in home theater. The AVM 90 specifically was designed as a step up where the audio circuitry and the DACs across the board were upgraded to deliver a much superior 2-channel listening experience. That was the point of this thing. So this is great for me because it's, again, a great hybrid processor. It's a great home theater processor, but that gives adequate attention to the 2-channel experience as well. Is it going to be a dedicated, 2-channel preamp? Anthem even knows that's not the case. That's why they make the Anthem STR preamp, which is their kind of standalone audiophile 2-channel preamp. This thing is pretty close to that, but it's also a 19-channel home theater processor, Dolby Atmos decoder and everything, right? So this is just a great all-arounder. The Anthem room correction is just amazing. I have grown to love it more and more as time has gone on. It's so flexible, so configurable, but the performance that you get out of it is just amazing. So shout out to Anthem. This is a true flagship. This is about as Endgame as I would ever need to get for processors. And yes, I know Trenov is out there and Storm is out there and other things. But for my taste, this is it. Now, processors do change. Things are going to come. HDMI 2.2 is coming. 8K or whatever other resolution. We might go from 10-bit HDR to 12-bit HDR, whatever it is, right? There's other standards that do get upgraded. So at some point, I'm probably going to have to upgrade this before a lot of other things here. But no rush. I'm enjoying this thing as long as I can. All right. Up here, we have one of the most used things that I have in my system. This is the PS5 Pro. Obviously a new edition as well. This is about a year old now. I've been loving this thing as well. Great performance. It looks super great on this television as well, which is saying a lot, right? I mean, 100 inches OLED quality, it really does make a difference. I've said this before when I talked about this PS5 Pro and this TV. I am the ideal use case for what the PS5 Pro is about. Someone that wants to play in a living room on a high quality TV that has HDMI, 2.1, 120 hertz support, all of that good stuff, right? That's what this is, right? If you're really going to see the difference with PSSR, really want to see the difference with higher resolution, the better the TV that you have and the bigger the TV you have, the more you're going to be able to appreciate that. So I feel like I'm able to really appreciate everything that this thing has to offer. It is quite a nice upgrade over the base PS5. So again, no complaints on my end. That, my friends, is an old PS3 that I still keep around because there actually are a few games that have never been made available anywhere else, as some of you guys probably know. Also, there was some karaoke games that I used to have there that I still use and I still kind of whip out every now and then. So I keep that PS3 around. The PS4 is not needed anymore because the PS5 can pretty much play and do everything the PS4 can do. But the PS3 was a unique beast, so we kept that around. And then finally in the rack here, this is another love of mine. This is Parasound's flagship stereo amplifier. It's called the JC5, made by John Curl. His actual signature is on it. This is a top of the line, 400 watts per channel. Both channels driven into 8 ohms, 600 watts into 4 ohms, and then it can be bridged to put out over 1200 watts into a single channel. This is a beast of an amplifier, but it's still elegant. It's not too big. Still fits perfectly into this space, but it can play and power these speakers with no problem whatsoever. Just these 2 speakers alone can absolutely fill this entire basement, which is just awesome. I'm telling you, as many speakers that I've seen blow out over the years and whatever, these things can just fill this room with just the 2 channels. It's awesome, with plenty of power to spare. So shout out to Parasound. I think it goes up to 12 watts of pure Class A power, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's more than enough to get a lot of good use out of them as well. And yeah, no complaints there. All right, so now we got the main core components out the way. The next step is what I call filling in the gaps, and this is what I did a lot of this past year, right? So what did I do? Well, cables and power. The idea was that I wanted to make sure that I was optimizing my system. I didn't do it from theory. I didn't do it on a whim. Okay, like I said, everything I've done is about bringing actual impact and meaningful things to my system. These did it. Now, what are these? These beast thick cables, you cannot appreciate how thick these things are looking at them on YouTube. But these are AudioQuest Thunderbird Zero Tech cables. This is the combined cable with the treble and the bass built into one cable, okay? So I have it kind of, as you can see here, wired into the Paradigm speaker. So there's 4 outs coming in, but it's really one cable, right? But the bass and the treble are separate here, okay? These cables are some serious stuff. And I'm telling you, putting it into my system and hooking it up to these speakers was one of the biggest differences that I have heard in the system. Absolutely, seriously. So AudioQuest Thunderbird, those are, again, these are in-game cables. That's the idea. I don't care what speakers I may get down the line. I know that I'm pretty much good on cables, because these cables are really can compete with almost anything out there. Seriously. Beyond that, I updated all of my cables, my interconnect cables, the cables going from my processor, my AVM90, to my JC5 amp. And I did all of this stuff, not just the JC5, but all of the amps. But I did this in a hierarchical fashion because, like I said, my system is multi-purpose. 2-channel music listening is where this stuff matters the most. That's where all of that detail that these speakers are capable of are really going to shine. That's where you want to put the most effort and investment in terms of getting the quality for power, for speaker cables, etc. For 2-channel music listening, I got the Thunderbird speaker cables. I also have the AudioQuest Pegasus XLR cables. That what goes from my Anthem, which is also my DAC and preamp, like I said, to my 2-channel JC5. Again, the JC5 is a flagship 2-channel amplifier. That's powering the left and right, so I can get the best amplification for 2-channel music listening, right? I'm using the Pegasus, which is a really, really high quality. It's their top of their mid-range. It's almost at the flagship level for AudioQuest, but doing that for just the 2-channel for the LNRs. That makes sense. For the other 5 channels, so my center and the surrounds, I use the AudioQuest Black Beauty cable, which is a step below that. They're still high quality, but they're a step below the Pegasus line. And again, that's why. The center, the surrounds, okay, they're not as important in the system as the front left and front right speakers are, okay? And then finally, for the Atmos channels, through the Outlaw, I even went down and I got the AudioQuest Mackenzie cables. Those are much more manageable, more entry level. Again, they don't need all of the craziness, right, that I'm trying to get to the front, left, right, and even to the center and surrounds, okay? But they're still upgraded from, some standard stock cables that you might get, right, lampshade type stuff, right? So I upgraded all of my interconnects, right? That's what that is. Even the HDMI and coaxial cable, I'm using a coaxial cable from my Hi-Fi Row streamer to the Anthem, right, which is my DAC. The HDMI cable was going out from like the Oppo and everything. All of that stuff has been nice. It's a step above stock, I'll say, okay? And that's the cabling in general, guys. Now, the other thing I did that is also super important is the power. It starts at the wall, guys. So at the wall, what you see there, that is a dedicated 20 amp circuit. and I have an AudioQuest Edison outlet on there. That's what that black thing is. All right, so that was a nice upgrade to make sure that right out the wall, the power is already getting filtered, right? It also has a really, really strong connector. So anything I plug into there, generally speaking, it's going to be really, it's to the point where it can also be really hard to pull out, right? It's like really, really tight connection to it. This big beast of a cable here that you can see coming from the wall is the power cable that is hooked up to the Niagara 5000 power conditioner, right? Where everything is plugged into, right? And that makes sense, right? So the biggest, most robust cable that I have, power cable, which was, again, an upgrade, is to get to this AudioQuest Blizzard. This is their Storm series. Again, a really, really thick, super high quality cable, pretty much has all of their technologies. So that's what I have going from the wall to the AudioQuest 5000 20 amp power conditioner, okay? So this is making sure that everything is filtered and clean. That's what the whole purpose of it, all of this is. In addition to that, I've upgraded the power cords on a couple of key components, right? So first, I have an upgraded power cord on the Anthem, right? So I have the AudioQuest ZR3 power cable, which is, again, a nice upgrade. Nothing crazy, but definitely enough to hear the difference above stock. Make sure it's getting, again, clean power. That's important because, again, the Anthem is my DAC and my preamp. And most people will tell you that for especially for music, that's probably one of the most important components that you want to upgrade your power to, okay? So I have that going there. And then the other place that I upgraded my power right now is to this thing, to the JC5. I have the AudioQuest Monsoon cable, which is, and I actually have the extreme version of that. Okay, so it's an upgraded version of the Monsoon cable. It's actually pretty close to the same price as the Blizzard cable. The Blizzard technically is higher, it's the higher in the line. But again, the extreme version means that, it goes up above and beyond even what the standard Monsoon cable does. Again, not cheap, high quality. Again, I absolutely heard the difference the moment I put that cable onto that amplifier. I'm not lying. People don't believe me. I'm telling you guys, it was obvious. All right, it was obvious and it was awesome. Now, the final thing I want to touch on is just the general room, because this all matters too, okay? The biggest thing, of course, with the room is that I recently updated and upgraded my acoustic treatment in this room and added a bunch of acoustic panels. So I already went over this in a previous video, but long story short, I went from having roughly 6 panels or 7 panels total, if you include the 2 bass traps over there, to having about 23 panels. All of the panels come from GIK Acoustics, who have been super helpful in getting me set up with those. And they are mostly these bass 244 bass traps, most of what you see. So the thick, plain, all black panels are generally those, okay? Those 244s. And then the hybrid diffuse absorption panels are part of the Alpha series. Okay, these are the 4-inch version Alpha series, and I've kind of spread them out to get some diffusion in the back, absorption as well. Now I have sound acoustic treatment in my stairwell here. This is also the first reflection point from this speaker. All of these are bass traps as well. They can grab at least down to about 125 hertz-ish. And then the 244s can go down to 80 hertz. So these are all bass traps as well around the room. So it makes a huge difference. Again, this is something I never even considered before, but in wanting to optimize and get the most out of my system, okay, I finally went down the rabbit hole, did my research, did my homework, talked to GIK. They did a scan in my room, a 3D scan. They gave me a plan of exactly the room modes and, the positioning of the panels and all of that stuff. And yeah, I gave it a go, and it definitely makes a huge difference. One of the biggest differences by far that a single change has made in this room, okay? So that's the big piece there. The other main piece here, I've had these now for about, what, 5-ish years as well, 4 years. These are the Valencia Tuscany theater seats, right? And again, awesome seats, got lighting, got USB chargers. I have some tables in all four, so you could put sit down, put a snack or a drink, popcorn, or whatever. I also have a wine caddy, which my wife likes to use to drink wine when we watch movies down here. And yeah, all four seats have storage, which we use for everything from remotes to my calibration mics to again the caddies and the tables and all that kind of good stuff. So, and it has lumbar support and adjustable headrests, right? Adjustable headrest and lumbar as well. Of course, it reclines all the way out. So, yeah, right. I mean, this is a really important piece of really getting that movie theater feel. Now, back here, this is essentially what I'm using as my second row, and it's great because it's low profile. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It looks elegant and modern. It fits the color and aesthetic really well. These chairs are nice and thick and high quality with a nice material as well. These are awesome quality, and I just love the look of that. So yeah, when I have extra guests, sit up there, got a great view of the movie. It's elevated above, my front row here. And yeah, these are awesome stuff. So this is kind of a bar table, right? And then these 3 swivel chairs, really serves well. And I like the idea of these being able to turn, and you can, kind of sit here while you're still playing pool or playing, air hockey or whatever. Just talking back here as well. Folks could be sitting over there. So this is kind of like the center point, right? Again, everything has a purpose. Everything is intentional. So these are a great second row, but this also is the transition from the dedicated kind of theater space to the more open rec space. And these can literally transition between both in that way, right? So that was, again, intentional, and it worked out really well, right? Back here, kind of more rec space, and I touched on this before, but for kids, for adults, that still want to have some fun. Pop-A-Shot is always a good attraction down here. Definitely have some nice competitive games there. Some 2 retro arcades from 1UP, NBA Jam and Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Both of these have multiple games in them. The Marvel vs. Capcom one has like 11 or 12 of the Marvel vs. games. And then NBA Jam has 3 versions of it as well. They still work fine. Nice retro feel. I like that. And then this is the Triad 3-in-1 pool table. It flips over to air hockey. And then I also have a ping pong board table I can put on top of it. So 3-in-1, some great, allows for just great versatility and flexibility. And also, again, adds a great aesthetic to the space back here. And then, yeah, it's a futon / sofa. It's kind of a theater sofa, has some cup holders and storage as well, but it also is a futon for when we have guests down here. Nice kind of in the corner, kind of out the way, but, we can use that to sleep. We have a mini fridge and freezer where, I put a lot of the drinks and stuff for down here. I have the RGB light strip behind there that I had going on now. I can change the mode, change the colors, of course. So it's not flashing, it's steady, it's different colors or whatever, but that just adds a little bit of ambiance, especially when I'm listening to music intently or, again, just having more of a general rec vibe down here. But I also added a dimmer to this basement area down here now, so the lights can go from bright, all the way down to, as dim as I want. If I get rid of the stair light, this is dim, but we kind of have good movie vibes. But if we're like eating or the kids, it's not off. And if I turn it off, that's off, right? So it gets really dark down here. This is important because, again, the lighting is an important piece for me to be able to transform this space from a full-on theater like this, without the RGB strip going on like that probably, but full-on theater mode, right, to kind of just a little bit of dimness to kind of get like a nice kind of jazz vibe or lounge feel. This one I gotta have there, to just having everything up when we're down here, really just chilling, all right, and having everything on. So yeah, guys, let me add this little piece about the seating. This is another piece of the room. And as you've seen the journey of how this room has transformed over the years, seating was one of those things that, I actually put a lot of thought into. It was pretty clear early on, 2020, 2021 days, that this room, this basement in general, just wasn't very social. It wasn't very friendly for social gatherings. Even the idea of doing a movie night, even with just the family, wasn't really great. Initially, I didn't even show you this, but I only had a single like circular kind of spinner chair that was in the middle of the room here when we first moved in. Couldn't do much even with the family. The kids would sit on the floor, but it was pretty rough. Then I kind of got this chair that I've stuck around. And, that's why I kind of made it kind of theater friendly with the storage and the seat and the cup holder and stuff like that, because I was using it, but it's not the most comfortable, clearly. And then we got the Valencia seats, which really ramped up the movie theater feel and comfort down here. But, there are 4 seats. I deliberately got the center kind of love seat there. Because most of the time, me and my wife are going to sit and we want to be able to, cuddle and stuff like that, and I have an armrest between us. Also, I can fit like 1 adult and 2 kids. Like me and my 2 kids can actually fit in the center area. Without the armrest, we can squeeze 3 in there if we need to. But that was like, again, a decision. So that was 4 to 5 seats. This was a comfort seat. It fit better in the space. If you saw the old video, I had this in that corner at one point, but it went all the way to the end. I left very little room for my subwoofer, or no room for my subwoofer in this case. That's when I had the subwoofer still in the front. And so this just, lines up better. I want the subwoofer in that corner and be able to have some seating over here that's still really comfy. Again, not the ideal spot, but it still can comfortably sit 1 or even 2, again, kids, or, it's wide enough to actually fit 2 adults, to be honest. Getting the second row, again, was another thing of just making it so that it could be a more social space. I could have more than, maybe a couple of couples down here. Again, a bunch of kids down here that they have some place to sit. And still be able to get a relatively enjoyable thing. It would have been a lot more work to get a riser with a second row, and a lot more expensive, of course. It also would have came back into this area of the room a lot more. And it would have taken up a lot of the open floor space that we have here. And some people have asked, like, well, your room is nice, but it's kind of empty back there, right? And, I could put more stuff on the walls. I could add more games. I can, and I thought about all of that, guys. But like I said, the space back here is intentional. Oftentimes, this back area is a very flexible space, right? My daughter just had a birthday party, and this room looked completely different. Right, I moved the arcade stuff out. I moved the pool table out, and you couldn't recognize the space at all. It was a sleepover for a preteen, right? And the floor was full. Still wanted to be able to put bedding down, and we bring tables out here, folding tables, for card nights, for setting up like a kind of impromptu bar at times, for gifts and presents, for birthday parties, for a lot of things, right? So we can bring tables out, we can bring chairs out. And just transform the space. So the flexibility of this space is why I like the roominess. And then again, a lot of times my kids are down here playing soccer, believe it or not, playing Pop-A-Shot. My son likes to come out here and dribble and shoot. We have football and basketball we can play catch with and all that stuff back here. So this space is important. So having a second row would have kind of went back into, what I kind of look at as the divider in this space. It would have filled up a lot of this space. Even playing pool, would have been hard because we wouldn't have had the space around it. This is also intentional, the position of this pool table, right? We want to have ample room to be able to go on all sides of it and be able to shoot, right? It still gets tight on this side, again, against the wall, but it's adequate, But moving it over here, I had it closer to the wall at one point, and it was pretty much impossible to shoot. Having it too close over here, again, now you miss out on a lot of the floor space. Pulling the chairs out here can get, you got people hitting each other and stuff like that. So again, everything is thought out. But this is kind of what we liked it there. This gives us 3 more seats, like I said. So comfortably, you can see here, there's 4 full adult seats, at least 1 full adult, that's 5, and then 3 back here, that's 8. So I can comfortably seat about 8 people but down here to just hang out, watch a movie or watch a sport event or whatever like that. We also have those Moon Pod beanbag chairs on the side here. They're really comfortable. My wife doesn't like them. Like most adults, they're kind of small for most adults in general, but they're great for the kids. So, we can lay them out here. The kids can lay down on them. It can really, have up to 4 kids kind of laying down if they just rest their head on them. But either way, at least 2 kids can actually sit pretty comfortably down here as well. So you add that piece in here, I went from having maybe 4, I can seat 4 to, creating this room to be able to seat, as you can see, about 10 people. And then, of course, there still is floor space. There still is space on the side over there. There still is space on the side right here where I have other stools. I have a bunch of folding chairs, right, that I can add. And I've done that, to add even more seating around here. So yeah, I've had a good 14 people sitting, around here at different times. That's not the ideal for just sitting down watching a movie, but just, again, to be hanging out down here is more than adequate. And still got, 4-seater back here, which, when I had big parties, definitely you got people sitting over here, chilling out in the corner, with the drink, talking, playing pool or playing whatever that we have out here. So, just had to touch on that because that was something that, I racked my brain on as I developed this room to make sure that it was a social space, still look clean, still kind of look elegant, still accommodated all of these use cases, again, for the kids, right, for company, for larger gatherings of all different age groups, but still kind of look sleek and really serve the purpose of having nice movie and music time as well. The other thing is, so thinking about it holistically, um, what are some of the practical compromises I had to make? That's important, guys, because there's always compromises, right, when it comes to home theater stuff. And this is a great room. I did what I could, but of course there's compromises. And I've talked about a lot of them already on this channel. One of the big ones, of course, is those rear surrounds. They're really, really far back from my main seating area here, right? There really wasn't anything I could do about that. I wasn't gonna put stands here because they would be kind of in the middle of the floor. And like I said, not a dedicated home theater. Kids and people running around. Getting wires here, would be really difficult. I would have to go through the carpet, I guess, and whatever. But yeah, it just wasn't a good look in this space. So get them back there, not ideal. I still can hear them. They still sound great. If they were closer to the seating area, could I get even a better effect from them? Absolutely, right? Compromises, guys, right? Compromises. Again, the shape of this room is just not ideal, right? Again, I don't have 4 corners. True corners, that opening there, the stairwell here, not ideal, right? That was why I was reluctant for a while to get the room treatments, sound panels, but still, right? It's especially for bass, it's not a great space for getting nice, even balanced bass and just sound throughout the room. Even with all of the panels I have up, it's still a big space that's still awkward. Still a lot of walls that are lacking. There's still a lot of space for sound to travel and bounce around, right? So I'm never going to be able to get it, obviously, perfect in here. Even like the Atmos speaker positioned, if I had my way, they would be a little bit further in, kind of closer inward to each other, to kind of be more directly overhead the main seating area. That was a compromise because the wiring and the walls had to go there due to the HVAC, and then there was a ceiling fan rough in there and that kind of thing. So when they built the house, they put that there, and then my wife didn't want me to run the wires because she was saying that the wires would be too visible if I pulled it farther away from the plates. So I pulled it a little bit, but I kind of left them still pretty close to the plate there, as you can see. And yeah, that's the idea. But ideally, placement wise, they would be a little bit further in and more directly above the main seating area. Another compromise, I talked about upgrading my wires where I could. Where I could not is in the 4 surrounds and the Atmos speakers. Because those are wired with wires running through the walls to keep that clean look I talked about. They're construction grade wire. They were put in here when I had the house built. They're not going to compete with some Audio Quest wires like I have up there, right? And they are pretty far runs, right? The ones, especially like back here, even the one on the stairwell, they're fairly far runs, right? So, there could be some room for introduce distortion or whatever, or just interference, I guess. It is what it is, right? I mean, sure, I could try to, get someone to run, upgraded wires through the walls and blah, blah, blah. It's not worth it, guys. I really don't think it's worth it. They sound great. I don't notice anything like the sound is lacking in any way from the surrounds in the rear. And again, you're not going to hear a whole lot from the surrounds, right? If that were my front LR, I would absolutely do something to swap them, right? To swap the wires. But for the sake of surrounds and Atmos, they're working. They're there. It's fine. Like I said, I did change the plugs, like the banana plugs from the surrounds in the back of the amps. And then also the interconnects to the preamp to my processor, upgraded those as well. So yeah, I mean, doing what I can, but yeah, I'm not going to just go in the wall just for the sake of upgrading the cables for hundreds of feet of run for all of the cables in the wall here, right? I want y'all to understand, that put a lot into this. I've invested a lot of money, invested a lot of time. I spent a lot of brain power, and it's worth it. Right? Like, I have achieved what I wanted to achieve. Again, this is not a dedicated theater, right? No one is sitting here saying this is like, I've seen, you go on Pinterest, people have rec rooms with crazy stuff and multiple pool tables, foosball and digital this and, crazy stuff. But for what I do and what we do as a family, this is it, man. This is just a great space, seriously. Home Theater Tour 2025, the core components, the filling in the gaps of power, of wiring, of cabling, and then the room itself. Sound treatment, acoustic treatment, adequate spacing for kids to still run around and play, activities for adults and kids that they can enjoy. Color scheme, wall painting, all of that, which is important to, again, being able to transform this room. Acoustic panels on the ceiling, the cloud panels up there. Everything, like I said, it comes together so well. I just want to be down here. I don't really, if I could, I would be down here all day, all the time. It's awesome, 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 awesome. So that's all for now. Home Theater Tour 2025. I probably will do some follow-up videos, but let me know if you have any questions in the comments, any other feedback or thoughts on some of my equipment and what I've done to the room. Until next time, True Techno Gamer, signing off.